Hi, I'm Anna McEwen, and this is The Epic Narrative. And now, my dad, Bob Switzer.
I love these phrases in scripture. You guys know this already. If you've listened to me at all, you know I get keyed in when I see a phrase like this. In chapter 13, 2 Samuel, it says, in the course of time. That means time. It's just one of those phrases that means a year has passed. A year of regular everyday stuff. A year in which Bathsheba is pregnant and probably has given birth by the time that this story rolls on. You got the Ammonites have been defeated, and the headdress, a 75-pound backpack of gold and precious stones, is now probably hanging in the throne room where everyone can see it, because it's like a wonder of the world, the craftsmanship and the wealth that it represented, and you have David's household. You've got multiple children that are now, in their 20s. They're married. They're having kids of their own. You got a few that are teenagers that are, taking their roles as princes in the kingdom, doing their thing, whatever that means. You've got some continued dissension, I believe, in Ahithophel, the main counselor. He's waiting for his moment. He's waiting for his moment. He knows eventually he will be able to pay David back for what he did to Bathsheba and for murdering Uriah. And these are things that David, I'm sure he's aware of, but I don't think he's aware of the dissension. I think in his mind, he's expecting, he's got his, I think what he does is he has his minds and antennas up for like the military violence. Like he's looking and has his filters out or his guards up, looking for extended family members or whatever that would be looking to kill him. And I'll tell you, I mean, I think that becomes more evident as this chapter rolls on. You'll see, I think, some nuances in David's decisions that show he's not a big fan of going after family members, disciplining family members, because I think he knows that there's some rumblings that he needs to be careful of. Nothing that he can't handle, or so he thinks, but things he needs to be careful of. So David is just doing life as a king. He's just walking out the years. Everything's going pretty good. David's probably running about 50 years old at this point. Bathsheba is 22, 23, probably has a newborn named Solomon in her arms. And then we have, and David, sorry, in the course of time, these are some notes I'm just checking out. David's been king in Jerusalem for about 20 years. So the nation is now in a pretty good rhythm of wealth and prominence amongst the other nations, and in the area of trade and military exploits. They squash anybody who's really looking to take them on. They're able to be aware of any outside influences that maybe are trying to push in the borders. David's expanding the kingdom. This is 20 years of really good stuff. So in the course of time, Amnon, now I'll probably end up saying it Ammon most of the time, but I do know it's Amnon. So it's Amnon. He's a son of David. He falls in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, who is the son of David. And you're like, wait, they're related? Yep. That was how they rolled back then. You kept the royal family in the family. And they would have shared probably a courtyard. A lot of the children grew up with their mothers in apartments, in what we would call apartments. I don't know if they were multi-leveled. They might have had 2 stories to them, but they would have been close to each other, and they would have shared courtyards and areas of meals, that sort of thing. They would have seen each other a lot, as much as they wanted to, I should say. And so you got this Ammon. He's Amnon. He's a man. He's a prince. And the culture of the day would have meant that he would have been probably expected. He would have expected a certain level of respect or honor, probably not necessarily that he deserved it or earned it, more so because of his position. People would have said, "Oh, you're a prince. 20 years his dad's been king." So the importance of who he is and the influence of his family just keeps getting bigger. So his importance and the people that want to talk to him and the way that they compliment him, butter him up, bring him things, give him gifts, like that would have just constantly increased, because he's probably about 20 years old. So he's probably never known his father not being king in Jerusalem. He has no reference really to the wilderness times. He has no reference to the times at Hebron. He knows the stories. Yeah, I'm sure he knows several of them, the mighty men. I'm sure he's been around the military. His brothers are in the military. He's got brothers who are in the priesthood and worship leaders. So he's aware of all of this. He doesn't have a job yet. He hasn't picked a career path. He's not sure where he wants to go. He's just hanging out with the family. And within that, women generally were considered, this sounds horrible. It's hard to say. They were generally considered property. They weren't considered of equal value to men. And that is not a principle it's a principle of heaven to know that men and women are of equal value. Jesus taught us that very clearly. And I believe God teaches us that. But the culture of the day was that women weren't considered of equal value, which is one of the reasons. And David perpetuated that mindset. He had multiple wives, concubines. I'm guessing there was kind of a known rumor that he had, taken Bathsheba to his chambers and raped her, and then he married her. He says he loves her, but it's all like, well, he was king, he can do what he wants. He's a man, he can do what he wants. And that mindset perpetuates, like it flows down from the father to the sons. And so the sons had a similar mindset when it came to women and wives. And you wanted to, if you wanted one, you took one. Now, he also was royalty, so he had a high expectation of compliance with his wishes. And at 19 years old, he would have been considered, definitely a man for the last, 5 years or so. And at 19, he would have been considered somebody who was a formidable leader. And especially with the influence in the tribes and in the nation, and his connection obviously to David, he would have had a high expectation of compliance. If he wanted something, he would have expected somebody to get it for him, or to give it to him, or to make it happen for him. And he was a prince. He was a prince that didn't have a great father figure. Remember, David might have been a little bit better of a father than his father was to him. But remember, David grew up with a father who was absent, who had rejected him, he had no discipline from his father. He had no idea of how to discipline his son. He was trained as a servant. He was trained in compliance or death. That was the world he grew up in. Although I don't know if his father would have killed any of his servants, but the general concept was you do what you're told. And you eat when you get fed, you get housed, and you do what you're told. And that's what we do. We're servants. That doesn't prepare you to be a father. It doesn't prepare you to discipline, to bring wisdom, to bring training, to bring life experiences to your sons. And David was busy. He had multiple layers of life going on. He had the tabernacle and worship and music, which he loved to do. He had the warrior mindset, the military strategies, and the interactions he needed to have with his generals and his commanders and his captains. And then he had the diplomacy, where he had to interact with and develop relationships with multiple nations and kings and tribes and large family gatherings and nomads and tradesmen. And he had to keep an eye on all of that and the influence that it was having around his nation. And he had a spiritual obligation that he felt very, very passionately about his identity and his destiny to build a nation that would draw all nations to God, to bring about a mindset that there is only one God, not multiple gods, that you don't need to sacrifice children and men and women to appease the God, but he's a God who loves to be with his people, and he dwells with them daily. And the tabernacle was there as an example over and over and over again, as any emissary or ambassador or family elder would come to the palace for a meeting. He would know that they worship their God 24/7. He doesn't go on vacation. He doesn't disappear for a while. He doesn't because you got to remember, like, idols would do that. The rain god showed up during the rainy season, and then he'd go on vacation, and then the sun god would come out. And then if there was too much sun and there was drought, then clearly we upset the sun god. And then there was the moon god, and sometimes the moon was full, and sometimes it would disappear. And then so that god would disappear. And I mean, it was just a common thing that gods would come and go. And David was developing this culture, a nation that believed that God was with them at all times. And that was something that he picked up in his interactions with God and in his interactions with heaven, where he was like, the presence of God is always available. It's always available. And he had all this going on, and he wasn't a great father. I'm not saying all of his children were horrible. They weren't. But I think most of that influence came from outside of David. It came from people like their mothers, Abigail, Bathsheba. I don't know if how Michael was with the children. Obviously, she didn't have any. She was bitter, generally speaking, and angry at David for the life that was and the love that she missed and all that. But that doesn't mean she was evil and rude all the time. And then I believe you had Nathan, who as the prophet of God, I think he also understood that family was really important. I think he made himself available to the children of David and to the mothers of those children. But David wasn't a great father. He really had no idea on how to discipline his children. All right, so verse 2. Amnon became so obsessed with his sister Tamar that he made himself ill. She was a virgin and seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. Now, Amnon had a friend, or some would say an advisor, but technically I believe he's a cousin. His name was Jonadab. He was the son of Shema, David's brother. Jonadab was a very shrewd man. And he asked Amnon, why do you think the king's son why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Tell me what's going on. And Amnon said, I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Wow. All right. We got some characters here to have fun with. So Jonadab is a cousin. He's a shrewd man. What that means is he's somebody who he's David's brother's son. Remember now, David's brothers rejected him all of his life up until he was king. I would say no. I shouldn't say that. I think that when they experienced him as a leader, when he was in the cave of Adullam, and there was 400 men that were following David, and David was training them in warfare and leading them in worship and mapping out strategically how to provide for them, and that would involve raiding and hunting and planting and all that. Taking side jobs as protectors of various flocks and large agricultural livestock. Thank you, livestock. Not developers, livestock traders and whatever. Anyway, I'm sorry, I get distracted again by the details. During that time, several of his brothers, I think, started to kind of come into alignment that David was really an amazing man and worthy of following, and they stuck with him. And even though they dropped off their mom and dad in Moab, basically never to see them again, the brothers stuck with David and followed David, and they became part of the royal family, the royal court. They helped David out in the military. They helped him out as advisors. They took roles within the nation under David's leadership, which had to be, it was humbling, but it's not humiliating if you have a wise leader. And David was wise. He knew his brother's strengths. He knew their influence in the nation, in the tribe of Judah. He knew their influence in the nation as the last name. He knew that to reject the rest of his family because of their rejection of him it's just not a wise move. And it's not a move that God would do, because God restores and resurrects dead things. He doesn't bring sickness and disease and death. So David's brothers are all part of the world, and David's brother had a son, Jonadab, and Jonadab became an advisor to Amnon. My gut is he's probably an advisor to most of the princes and probably an influencer in the royal court. And he was somebody who basically just looked out for himself. He was always around the court. He was always, he was probably one of those guys who always seems to get an invitation to a party and nobody really knows who brought him. They're not sure how he got in, but somehow he's always around all the influential people. That's who I picture Jonadab to be. Because he shows up again later in the court of David. Like somehow he's in the places he needs to be to influence life, but he probably doesn't actually have an official title anywhere. He's probably one of those guys where you look at him and think, how does he make a living? Like, what does he do? And nobody really knows. What does Jonadab do? I don't know what he does. Well, how did he afford that? Where did he get his house? Like, where's he? And everybody just kind of shrugs, like, I don't know. Maybe he got his money from his father. Maybe he got it. I mean, he is kind of connected to King David. Maybe his father gave him money. I don't know. Jonadab was an influencer. He would have had an Instagram account with millions of followers because he would have had all these great shots of the royal family, and nobody else would have had access to him. And Jonadab would have let everybody know, look what I can do, and look who I hung out with today, and look, we went on a picnic, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so he sees Amnon, somebody who he knows he has influence over, somebody who he probably would have considered a friend. I mean, even some translations use the word friend instead of advisor. But he says, why do you look so haggard? My gosh, you look terrible, dude. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. Amnon's like, I am in love. What? Yeah, I'm in love. With who? With Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Wow. Really? Tamar? Oh my word, yes. Well, what's the problem? Well, I don't know. I don't know if there's any way for me to get to her. She's old enough to be, to marry. She's incredibly attractive, probably distinctive, but probably one of the most, again, attractive things is her innocence, her purity. I mean, when I was, not just the modeling industry, but the porn industry is all about trying to make people look young and innocent and inexperienced and submissive, available. And when he looked at Tamar, he saw all those things. He looked at her and he saw, oh, if I could just be with that. He fell in love with Tamar. She was around, right? All the time. He could see her probably from his window. He could watch her in the courtyard. He could see her with the other sisters and cousins as they would I don't know, go out into the streets during the day to do shopping or go for walks as royal daughters and go through the fields with with a few guards and their brightly colored dresses because that's what virgins would wear. And they were, again, royal families, so they looked clean and they were fresh and they, the hair was done right and I'm just everything about it was perfect as far as he was concerned. And I'm sure she looked distinctive. Absalom is often described as one of the best looking people ever in the world. He had the perfect long, straight, dark hair, which was distinctive from the generally wavy or curly hair that the Middle Eastern Jewish community generally had. But he had long, straight hair, and I'm guessing so did she. So she was distinctive. Maybe her skin was a little less or a little more pigmented than others. He just looked at her and he fell in love, which was really, when you fall in love, sometimes you don't really necessarily have a choice on that end. You have to choose what to do afterwards. But Amnon just fell in love and he made himself sick thinking about her. He was so in love. And I do remember back in the day. I was a young man. And you'd see certain, I would, not you, I'd see certain girls and I would think, oh, like we call it infatuation, right? Or crush. And you do, your stomach feels almost nauseous. You're not sure what to do. And trust me, guys do stupid, crazy things to try and express that emotion, whatever that is. They are goofy. They are crazy. They do silly things. They do dangerous things. They do feats of strength. Pick things up and throw things around, or pick up each other and throw each other around. Anything to try and express this crazy nauseous feeling that you feel when you're around that girl that makes you feel this way. It's crazy, and you look back and it's actually kind of funny and fun. And at some level, honestly, I still feel it when I'm around my wife. She's been the love of my life for years, and I still get goofy around her, and she knows it, and she, will be like, stop. And I'll think, but I'm so in love with you. Okay, I know. Thank you. It's funny. She's funny. She's awesome. So, anyways, Amnon feels this toward Tamar, although he really hasn't even spoken to her much. And I know what that's like too. I remember when I first saw my wife, and man, I mean, she wasn't my wife. I first saw this girl, and she was walking. I remember her walk. I'd still love to watch my wife walk. I still do to this day. And she rolls her eyes because I don't care if she catches me. I'll just watch her walk. And she'd be like, stop it. And I'd be like, but I love your walk. I just do. And I remember the first day I saw her walk and I thought, oh my word, if I ever had a chance at a girl that looked that amazing, if I ever. But I really didn't think I would. I really didn't. But I kept an eye on her. And I continued to flirt and use, I mean, for me, I didn't really have like feats of strength or that sort of thing. I used my enthusiastic expression and my ability to I would consider to be funny, in my ability to cut other people down, which is not a good quality to have, but I had developed it quite nicely. Um, and my ability to compliment girls, charming. I was charming and funny. And I also, in that charm, I had really developed a attention to detail because I found that was very, it set me apart from most other guys. I mean, specific detail. Like I would notice eyelashes, and I could tell, like back in the 80s when this was happening, early 80s. I could tell we had like tinted, not we, but girls would use tinted eyelash whatever, and I would notice like the blue or the purple or the yeah, and I would mention it. Eyeliner, eyeshadows, lip gloss. I actually learned the scent of several general perfumes that most girls at least had one of these, right? And when they would wear it, I could identify it and I would mention it to them. And when you notice those details, at least from my perspective, it set me apart from the guys who were really good looking, the guys that were really strong, the guys that were able to do other things. I just went with my strength. And I used it whenever I had a crush. But man, this girl, I kept an eye on this girl, and I'd watch her walk. I really would. And I know it's creepy. It's creepy when I talk about it in my head, but it's true. I could stand in my dorm. I was on the second floor. I could stand in my dorm, and I could watch her walk, to class, and I would watch her walk, and then and then I'd run to class because that usually meant I was going to be a little late if I watched her walk. But I would, and I would find I knew her schedule. Anyways, I just was in love with her, and I didn't know how to talk to her. She was the only girl on campus I didn't know how to talk to. And I think part of it was I found her so attractive, and the other part was I had no idea. I knew most of what I would normally say to a girl was to try and get them to like me, but that involved at some level a lack of integrity on my part. I would become what I thought they wanted me to be in order to find me attractive, and then for me the game was over, and I would then just go back to being myself. Or, if what it was, I know I'm such a jerk. I know I am. I know you can email me and let me know again. But I'd play the game. I'd get them to like me. I'd, whatever, confirm it with all my friends. And then after a couple of weeks, it was like, yeah, I'm done. The game's over. I'm going to go, I've found someone else I'm attracted to. I'm going to go over there. So I'm literally doing this, but I'm still watching this girl because I keep thinking if I ever had a chance. Enough about me. On with the story. I'll tell you more about, I will, if you want to know more of that story and how we ended up together, which I think is a wonderful story. I love telling it, but it could take a while, and I don't want to take a while in the podcast because that little narrative is not the epic narrative that we are currently in. So he's got this feeling. He doesn't know how he's ever going to talk to this girl. It seems impossible for him to do anything to her. He just has no idea how to even talk to her. And Jonadab, the influencer, says, "Listen, I got this. Let me give you a plan. Go to bed, pretend to be ill. Your dad will come and see you." Which to me speaks to what type of interaction David had with his kids. If they were sick or injured, he went to see them. He wasn't a regular in the family compound. He didn't come by and see his kids. It wasn't like, hey, your dad will be by, he comes by every night, or he comes by every afternoon, or, whatever. He's here every morning, talk to him. It's like, pretend to be sick. Your dad will come to see you. And then say to him, I'd like my sister, and I know technically they're not brother and sister, but anyways, I'd like my sister Tamar to come and give me something to eat. Let her prepare the food right here so I can watch her and then eat it from her hand. So his basic plan is pretend to be sick. Your dad will come see you. And then he's going to say something like, what can I do for you? Because again, it speaks to the type of father David is. I just give them what they want. I try to make them happy. I try to be a good father. He doesn't know how to be a good father, so he just gives them what they want. And Jonadab knows this. And he's like, just ask your dad for something. Just say, hey, can you send Tamar over to make me something to eat? I think if I had some of the bread that she makes, some of the cakes that she's famous for around the family compound. I don't know if that's true or not, if she was famous for making these things, but Amnon goes with that. And then just say, I'd like her to make them like right here, like not to bring them over. I want them fresh. I want them warm out of the oven. I don't want her to make them at the kitchen and then bring them all the way over in a basket. I want to see her. And I want to taste them right here. And Amnon goes with the plan. Now this is where the choices start. Now Amnon is going to approach this whole thing like he's a victim of love. He fell in love. He didn't have a choice in it. And all the rest of the plan that he steps into is under the guise of, I can't help it. I fell in love. This is where so many people go wrong, because they use this victim mentality to cheat on their girlfriend, cheat on their boyfriend, cheat on their wife, cheat on their husband. And it may not be physical cheating, it may be emotional cheating, it could be, texting or sexting or whatever. Like there's just all kinds of ways, and they say, well, I couldn't help it. We fell in love. I couldn't help it. We fell in love. I couldn't help it. We fell in love. Fine. You fell in love. Then you have choices to make. And the first one that he made was to listen to Jonadab's advice. He could have said, you know what? That's not, Joab, come on, bruh. What are you talking about? Jonadab is not a good influence. Jonadab is somebody who's not bringing kingdom principles into making decisions. He's not a wise advisor. He's an advisor that says, I'll help you become selfish. I'll help you continue to be a victim of your circumstances. I'll influence and help you basically be the selfish, arrogant punk that you currently are. I'll just help that become more so that you'll appreciate me and I'll get more of influence. Like Jonadab's out for himself, and he teaches Amnon or advises Amnon to do the same thing. Amnon first makes the choice to listen to Jonadab's advice. Then he makes the choice to make himself ill. He didn't have to do this. Amnon laid down and pretended to be sick. And sure enough, David came to see him. And Amnon said, I would like my sister to come and make me some of that special bread, in my sight, so I can eat it from her hand, so it's nice and warm and fresh. Honestly, that's something amazing to eat fresh bread. If you've never had it, then I'm sorry, but you do know. when you have it. It is pretty awesome. So he makes himself depressed and despondent and sick. All of these are choices. He listens to his friend, his cousin. He lies to his father. Right? He comes to see him. He could have just said, yeah, I'm sick. I don't feel well. Like, what do you think I should do? Or thanks for coming to see me, Dad. Like he could have pulled out of the plan right there. And instead he goes forward with the plan, which is usually the case when it comes to cheating, when it comes to these kind of what we call big bad decisions. It's usually you made hundreds of them by the time you actually do the deed. So he says, all right, fine. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll send Tamar over. And he sends word to Tamar at the palace. So he doesn't even go to see her. He just sends word, go to your brother Amnon, prepare some food for him. So Tamar goes. She's completely innocent in this. She has no concept of what's going to happen to her. So she comes, dun dun dun, and the furnace turned on. You probably heard that. I don't know. Actually, my producer might have just. It's so amazing what he can do with those filters, anyways, and compressions and EQing or whatever. Impressive, these guys. Anyways, so she goes and she prepares food for him, which again takes time, right? And he watches her. He watches her the whole time. He's probably trying to make small talk. She comes in. She has the ingredients. He's lying down. She takes some dough. She kneads it. She makes the bread in his sight, banging on it, kneading it, mushing it. He watches all of this. She takes the pan. She puts it in the fire. She brings the pan in. She serves him bread, and he pretends to be too sick to eat. I can't eat. Send everyone out of here. So everyone leaves him. It's just him alone with Tamar. And he's like, all right, listen, Tamar, I can't get out of bed. I need you to bring it into my bedroom. And I need you to feed me. I'm so ill. I need you to feed me with your hands. Again, all of these are choices. Please don't forget this. He's making choices over and over and over again. He's making these choices in order to get what he wants, in order to obtain what he thinks he deserves, in order to perpetuate the mindset that he's a victim of love. None of this is his fault. He can't help himself. She's so beautiful. She's so distinct. She's so attractive. Her purity, her passion, her skin, her hair, her lips, her teeth, like everything about her is just captivating. I can't help myself. So she brings it in. She's innocent, right? Tamar took the bread that she had prepared. She brought it to her brother in his bedroom. And when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her, probably right at the wrist. She's reaching out. She's got the piece of bread. She's probably got a smile on her face. He's lying there. He's looking straight at her. She reaches out. He grabs her wrist, and he's like, come to bed with me. Sleep with me. Let's have sex. Everything about this speaks to that same mentality that the porn industry constantly tries to preach, which is everybody wants to have sex with you. Every girl wants to have sex with you. And all you need to do is show her how much you want to have sex with her, and they'll give in. Now, I'm sure I don't know this, but I'm guessing there's all kinds of twists and perversions on that concept, but generally that's what they're peddling. They're peddling. Well, I know, and then they're also peddling. I just because I'm aware and keep myself aware of it. I know that the underage sex and the pedophilia and the sex trade and the human trafficking is a horrible blight in our nation and in our world and needs to be stopped. But that mentality is still here. It's here in Amnon. He's saying, if I can get her in my bedroom and I grab her and I tell her I want to have sex with her, I know she'll give in. She will see how much I love her because I want to sleep with her. She will comply because I'm a prince, because I'm influential, I am wealthy, I am a man, and she's a woman. Like, there's so much arrogance and selfishness and rudeness and unkindness and everything that isn't kingdom is going on here, and all of it is Amnon's choice. He's playing the victim. He thinks he's a victim of love, and he believes that because of who he is, when he grabs her and says, "Sleep with me," she's going to give in. And she doesn't. She refuses. She goes, "No, don't rape me. This should not be done in Israel. Don't do a wicked thing." Now, her response, again, remember when Bathsheba's raped, we don't hear any of this because evidently she just was taken. Tamar tries to fight back. Tamar is trying to reason with her brother, and it probably didn't happen as quickly as you can read it. There's a struggle going on. I wonder if at some level her little spidey senses went off, like, okay, I'm coming into this man's bedroom. He says he's sick. He wants me to feed him. Okay. But this is really unusual. And he sends everybody out of the house, not just out of the room. He's like, I need to be alone just with Tamar. I think internally she's like, I gotta be careful. So when he grabs her and he says, "Sleep with me," she's like, no, don't rape me. Do not do this. This is bad. This is wicked. This is wicked. This should not be done in Israel. What she's saying is not just in the nation, but because of who you are. You're a prince. Like what you're bringing in, what you're trying to do right now, what you're bringing into the nation is not something we should have as a nation. We're royalty. We behave better than this. We are children of God. We behave better than this. We make better choices than this. She recognizes that this is a choice that Amnon is making, and he can make a different choice. This is fascinating. Tamar's an amazing young lady. And then she pleads with him more, because I have a feeling he's probably wrestling with her, and maybe he's got her on her back at this point, and she's, on the floor or on a couch or in the bed. And she's like, what about me? Think about me. Where could I go to get rid of this? If I'm raped, you take my purity from me. You take my virginity from me. What happens to me? And what about you? You're going to be considered an idiot for taking me. Just ask Dad. Ask the king. I'll marry you. Fine. You say you love me, because I'm sure he's spouting that off the whole time. I love you. Let me rape you. This will be great. because men are idiots when they're like this. Sin always makes sense when you're in it. It doesn't make sense when you listen to it. But he's thinking, I love you. Let me rape you. Then you'll feel my love. You'll feel how much I'm in love with you when I'm inside of you. This will be amazing. Oh, my word. Guys are so twisted. They just don't get intimacy sometimes. And Amnon had no idea what he was doing, other than he was making a lot of bad choices. And she's calling him out on it. She's reminding him, these are your choices. It's your choice to rape me. It's me. And what are you going to do? She's trying to make him think long term. What are you going to do with me? You rape me, then what? And fine, you don't care about me. What are you going to do about you? Your reputation. You're going to be seen like an idiot in Israel. People are going to be thinking, Amnon can't control himself. Amnon doesn't have royal, the royal mindset. Amnon doesn't follow the Lord. Like there's all kinds of reputation that you are sacrificing on for what? I can marry you. Just ask the king. We can make arrangements. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she really wanted to marry him, but at that point, she understood, like, if he rapes me, so much in my life and his life is going to change. She's the only one that's making logical sense. She's the only one that's making the right choices. Amnon continues to make bad choices. He ends up raping her. And then it says Amnon hated her with such an intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had been in love with her. And he said to her, "Get out." And she said, "No." Again, she's trying to do the right thing. Sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you've already done to me. And it says he refused to listen to her. So this, again, the nuance is she tried to reason with him. She's like, "Okay, fine, you raped me." Now, this is crazy to me that she had this kind of fortitude, this internal, amazing personality that would be strong enough after she's raped. She goes, "Okay, the only way this gets worse is if you kick me out. If you rape me and you leave me in your house, then we can still get married. We can still make this right. And even though it's out of order, at least there'll be some positive that could come out of this." And he looks at her and he's like, basically, "Well, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it'd be. I really thought after I was, having sex with you, like we would be so sexually compatible that the intensity of my pleasure and the pleasure that you feel when I was, raping you would be so amazing that we would be in love with each other forever, that this would be a never-ending love story. And you know what? I'm not feeling it. You know what? It's your fault. This is your fault. Because you didn't let me sleep with you. You made me wrestle with you. You made me tear your clothing. You made me rape you. You, even after I was done having sex with you, you should have been enjoying life, and instead you're just lying there. You're not even thankful for being with me, as I'm an incredible man. And look, you're just weeping. You're acting all emotional. This is I don't like you at all. I really thought you would be much better than this." And I'm sure he pushes this all on her. Why? Because he's an arrogant prick. That's why. He's just a horrible man. And she's lying there going, "Don't send me out of, do not kick me out of your house." And he's probably arguing back. "See, this is what I'm talking about. You should be happy that I raped you. And you're not. You're not even happy about it. You don't even look like you enjoyed yourself." And they have this back and forth. And eventually he calls in his personal servants and he says, "Drag this woman out of my sight and bolt the door, lock the door after her." Now they know what he did. They know that he raped her. They saw the whole thing. They probably heard the plan. They heard the conversation. He followed through on the conversation. And when it was all done, and she's trying to convince him, "Don't kick me out. Don't kick me out." Nope. He pushes her away, and he doesn't even have, this man is such a creep. He's like a worm. He's worse than the worm. He's the slime on the bottom of the worm. No, this man. And any man that does this is a horrible being. Internally, they are so far from their identity that God has put in them that they think that this is who they are. They think that this is, that their destiny, right, is to rape this woman and give her pleasure. And then she doesn't have pleasure. So this is clearly her fault because I'm amazing. He doesn't even have the guts to kick her out of the house. He calls in his servants, further embarrassing her and humiliating her. And he says, pick her up and throw her out and lock the door behind her. I don't ever want to see her again. Look at what she did to me. She made me fall in love with her. She made me want to sleep with her. And then she refused, and I had to force myself on her. And now she doesn't even have pleasure in it. So fine. She wants to marry me? I wouldn't marry some wretch like you horrible whore. Get out of here. Honestly, this is a horrible conversation. So his servants put her out and bolted the door. She was wearing the robe that all of the young daughters, virgin daughters of the king wore. Like I said, they're brightly colored and it flowed in the wind, and they would dance and walk, and wherever they were, like these robes were just such an amazing illustration of the joy and purity of their lives. And Tamar puts ashes on her head, and she tears the robe, and she puts her hand over her head, and she goes away weeping aloud. So I'm guessing in the area, like she was kicked out. In outdoor, there was the fire pit. Probably the ashes were still there from the bread that she had cooked, because they didn't build like bonfires. They would build little cook fires. She puts those ashes on her head. She tears her robe. Everybody knows something horrible has happened to her, and she covers her face with her hands, and she runs away, weeping, just weeping so aloud. She did everything right, and he did everything wrong, and yet she's the one who's left like this. And she goes to her brother Absalom. And he said to her, has Amnon, your brother, been with you? In other words, he says, wait a minute, did Amnon do this? Did he rape you? And she says, yes. And he's like, all right, be quiet for now, for he's your brother. Don't take this thing to heart. Absalom hears the story. It's not that quick of a conversation. He's like, wait a minute, what happened to you? What happened? What happened to you? She goes running to him. He probably hugs her, and he's like, what happened? What happened? My gosh, you're like, what happened? You ripped your robe. You're covered in ashes. What happened? And she's just weeping, and he senses, he's like, oh, wait a minute. Did Amnon rape you? He did. She's like, yes. I told him not to. I struggled. He was more powerful than me. I told him to stop. I told him I would marry him. She tells him the whole story. And he's like, all right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to calm down. You can stay here at my house. I'll take care of you. And Absalom, he goes, the phrase there, he's your brother. Don't take this thing to heart. He's implying, I will take this. I will defend you. But it's going to be a while. And Absalom went for the long plan on this. He's like, I will put something together. And when David heard all of this, he was furious. But he did nothing. That was a dramatic pause. So angry. And I don't know why he didn't do anything. Some would say, well, because he raped Bathsheba and this was his fault. Maybe. I mean, I'm guessing it's multiple reasons, so that's probably one. And one is he knows he's a bad father. He doesn't discipline his children. He doesn't know what to do, so he doesn't know how to discipline Amnon. Because if he disciplines Amnon, then he's got probably a list of other people that he needs to discipline. So what does he do? And he thinks about what he opened up the family to when he raped Bathsheba, and he thinks, well, this is part of probably what God was trying to warn me about, and I wasn't paying attention to this kind of thing. I was paying attention to something else, and so this happened. So maybe this is my fault. But he doesn't do anything, and it says Absalom never said a word to Amnon, good or bad. He just hated him. He hated him because of what he did to his sister. Now that's somebody who has deep, deep offense issues. He doesn't say a word. Can you imagine the first time Amnon and Absalom ended up in the same courtyard or the same dinner table? And Absalom just smiles at him and they have a nice conversation, and Amnon walks home going, wow, I guess everything's cool. Absalom must be cool with it. I mean, Tamar's living with him. I'm guessing she knows he knows what I did to her. He doesn't care, so I don't care. So everything's good. Oh, but it's not good. It's not good in the house of David, and it's not good in Absalom's heart, and things are going to get way worse. But we'll hit that next time on the Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.